This is Sports Talk with Ed. This is Ed coming to you from the campus of Long Beach City College. I want to thank the Long Beach City College Radio and Television Department for allowing us to use the studio here today. That's a big surprise, which is the reason why the show has been on hiatus for a while. I wanted to give everyone a surprise that we actually are in the radio studio, which is pretty cool compared to the episodes editing at home. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today. We want to welcome those of you who are watching us on Podbean app, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify. You can go ahead and subscribe to us on our Instagram, which is Sports Talk with Ed. Coming up today, we're going to talk about the Rams. Big disappointing loss in Dallas yesterday. And are the Rams in trouble? Plus, the Chargers with a statement win last night against the Chicago Bears. Are they playoff caliber? And can they catch up to Kansas City in the AFC West? All that and more as we begin with the top story of the game. Here we go. It's the top story of the day on Sports Talk. Well, not a good game for the Rams yesterday. The Rams went into Dallas hoping to get their season turned around, even up their record at 4-4. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The Rams fell hard to the Cowboys, 43-20 in Big D. Now, why is this a big factor? I'll tell you why. No one thought the Rams were going to have more wins at the start of this season. Everyone figured the Rams were going to be maybe a one win or a two-win team, which is very, very shocking to some of the analysts. But hey, that's why they play the game. If you look at the standings right now in the NFC West, we have a new leader, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. They beat Cleveland yesterday in a very good game, and San Francisco, who was the dominant division winner of last year, the team to run away with this division, has now lost three straight after a 5-0 start. Everybody can say, oh, Debo's not on the field. That's the reason why Mr. Reliable Purdy has been struggling. If you look at the stats, yes, less touchdowns, more interceptions, which is really not the best thing if you look at it. Now, why is this important again? Because believe it or not, the Rams can still win the NFC West. Yes, there's just 2 games out. You got Seattle at 5-2, the Niners at 5-3, the Rams sitting in at 3-5, can still win it. But let's just say, in all stance, let's say they can do it. Can they? Question is yes. You look at the first 8 games of this season. You had teams like Seattle, which they really dominated surprisingly. You had the 49ers, who they could have won. They should have won. But they gave away a big lead. Well, not a big lead, but they gave away the lead. If you go back to that second game, the tide turned when Stafford threw that interception that got San Francisco the momentum. So, 1-1. You go to Monday night in Cincinnati for Game 3. That was a winnable game. If you watch that game, the first 2 possessions for the Rams were field goals. They got to the goal line fast. They just were not able to run it in. They couldn't do anything else. So that was 6 points. Now let's say they go for it on fourth down. 7 points, 14 points, at the 3 points, touchdown in the game. The Rams win. So that was another game they could have won. Now let's go to Indianapolis, a game that they did win. It's one of those cases in football, it's called you play the game and you're supposed to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. The Colts was supposed to be team. The Rams went up 23-8. The Colts had a fourth quarter comeback. The game went to overtime. Akua catches the winning touchdown. 29-23. Okay, good job. Your confidence is boosting. Then comes the Philadelphia game. Look, the Rams had them stopped in the red zone. A couple of questionable penalties, and the Rams lose. Newsflash, they didn't score in the second half. So they can score points. They just can't finish the game. And for some reason, the second half has been an issue for the Rams, especially in the fourth quarter. Now we go to the next game, Arizona. Okay, again, slow first half. Stafford's pass to Cooper Kupp got the offense going. They were able to run the ball. They got over 100 yards rushing. Good job. You win the game. Then last week, Pittsburgh. Now, the reason I'm saying the Rams should have won in Pittsburgh was because they were winning. Sean McVay has a great record when this team leads at the half. When they lead in the half, they win. They won 85, 90% of their games since he came to LA. The Rams have never played from behind until the last few years. Stafford on the first play of the third quarter throws an interception to who? To Watt. He throws it. He scores. Bam. The floodgates open. You think I was happy watching that game? No, not precisely. I was not happy. And that's how it goes. And if you don't believe me, why don't we go back to history? Why don't we that interception got Pittsburgh going. They weren't doing well in that first half. And of course, we had the kicking game issues, which you can understand why. But if you don't believe me that that was a tie to the game, then let's take a listen. That play was the key turning point of that game. Pittsburgh scored on the next play. It was back and forth. And the reason I say the Rams could have won that game was because the field goal situation. 2 field goal misses, 1 extra point miss. I take that back, 2 extra point misses, but they got the 2 points back on a 2 point conversion. But if you add those 2 field goals that was missed, the Rams would have won this game 23-17. Pittsburgh would have had to go on the front four and score on that last drive. Now, why is it important? Because of the controversial fourth down. If you look at that replay, Pickett's legs was down. His knee was down. His knee was down, and he didn't move the ball. Now, how they got that friendly move, I don't know. Look, I know it's been a week since that game, but there's been a lot of controversial calls in the NFL this season alone and the last few years. And yes, I will admit, the 2018 pass interference call should have been against the Rams. That was just a blatant one. Now, I was calling the college game for SoCal College Sports this past weekend in Golden West College. There were a lot of questionable calls and there were a lot of missed calls. But when you go back to the Pittsburgh game, the Rams could have won that game. I believe that defense would have stepped up and they would have stopped. And if that was the case, if Sean McVay had that last time out, he could have challenged. He could have challenged and he could have won that challenge. Rams get the ball, they will go down and tie the game or maybe go for the win. But if you had those 6 points, all they had to do was just run out the clock. Now, a lot of us forgot about that game, so let me play it to you. Let's go back in history. Let's go back in time. And our special thanks to the NFL and Fox for providing such coverage of that game. Point taken. I don't have to say nothing else. That was a game the Rams should have won. Feel free to log into Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, Sports Talk with Ed. Send me what you think. Send me a message. Tell me what you think. What would the Rams record be right now without those devastating losses? Let's go back. San Francisco, they should have won it. 2-0. Cincinnati should have won. 3-0. Indianapolis, they won. 4-0. Now, Philadelphia. I'm going to go back and go on the limb and say, you know what? The Rams played bad. Yes, they had the lead, but they didn't score in the second half, so it wouldn't matter. Excuse me. That wouldn't matter. So their first loss of the season comes there. Now let's go to Pittsburgh. Should have won that game. 23-17 or 23-24, whatever. 5-1. Now Dallas, okay, their second loss. This team has good talent, and they should be right now sitting at 5-3 in second place or third place because or second place because they would have been San Francisco in the NFC West. Now the Rams schedule gets a little bit easy. How is it easy? Let's talk about it. Next Sunday they're in Green Bay. 2-5 Green Bay. No Aaron Rodgers. That team's rebuilding. Don't worry about it. Now, the 19th, they come back home. They play the Seahawks, the team that they blew away in week 1. But the Rams only won one game at home this season. That might be a problem. But I believe the Rams could win. Then they go to Arizona on the week of Thanksgiving. So there's 3 games that the Rams can win. If Minnesota can go into Lambeau Field and win, the Rams can do it. Now keep in mind the last 3 trips to Lambeau Field, the Rams have lost. I think this will be a good chance to end that streak. And we do know that Jordan Love is a good quarterback, but he doesn't have a lot of talent on that team, and I think the Rams can pick them off. Seattle is always a close game. They've always been the Rams being the Seahawks. Seattle swept the Rams last season. The year before that, they swept the Seahawks. So whose turn is it to sweep? The Rams? Or will this be a 1-1? Then, the first game in December against the Cleveland Browns. Okay, that one will be tough. Cleveland is no joke. They've played some good teams and they've beaten the 49ers. So that defense is number one in the NFL. That will give Stafford trouble. Then on the 10th, and we'll stop there, their next 5 games are against playoff teams and some losing teams. 3 of those 5 are playoff teams. Seattle. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. It's 2 of the 5 are against playoff teams. Seattle and Baltimore. Those are the 2 teams that will give the Rams trouble. Now, Cleveland, because they're doing well, I will say they will give the Rams trouble. Arizona is in the rebuilding year. We don't know if Kyle Murray is going to play. We saw what happened in the first meeting. And then Green Bay again. I think those are winnable games. So if you look at that, that's about a 4-2 mark right there. Or 3-2. The rest of the schedule gets easy because they're going to be playing teams that they're capable of beating, standing toe-to-toe, or maybe going for the upset. Now, they wrap up the season in San Francisco. So that's one game I'm looking and I'm circling right now because it could decide a division or a wild card spot. Currently, the Rams are out in the playoff hunt. They're currently 9th in the standings. Minnesota currently holds the last spot at 4-4. But in Minnesota's loss yesterday, or rather Minnesota's win yesterday, and we're going to talk about this right now, quarterback Kirk Cousins was injured in the Packers game yesterday. And here's the bad news. Coach Kevin O'Connor was afraid that he may have torn his Achilles. Now, earlier today, he had an MRI result back, and the test confirmed that he suffered an Achilles and he will be out for the rest of the season. So that is very, very damaging for the Minnesota Vikings. Advantage Rams. We don't know how Minnesota is going to go after this. Losing your quarterback is very, very decimating in the NFL. We've seen it before. 99, Vinny Testaverde with the Jets. 2008, Tom Brady with the Patriots. Aaron Rodgers this past season, he lasted 4 plays. So having a quarterback is very important. Stafford, he suffered a thumb injury in Dallas yesterday, but he's still ruled out, or he's ruled day to day. He has a UCL sprain according to Sean McVay. So eyes are open on that one. We don't know if he'll play against Green Bay. Now, if he misses his game and the Rams lose, then the Rams are in trouble. They are definitely in trouble. Because they don't have another backup. Baker Mayfield, he went to Tampa. He's having an up and down year. Can the Rams win? My answer is yes. I went over the scenarios, and I think the Rams can win. So I want everyone who's watching to let me know what they think. Go to my Instagram page, leave me a message, let me know what you think. Can the Rams make the playoffs at 3-5? We're gonna go ahead and take a short intermission. We'll be back in a few seconds. We'll still continue to talk about the Rams. Plus, the Chargers. Big statement win against Chicago last night on primetime television. Now, can they turn it around and make a run? Can they catch Kansas City and make the playoffs? Will the playoff situation keep Brandon Staley for at least another year? Is his job still in place? Plus, we'll switch over to college football. Big win for USC, UCLA, decimating Colorado, and some big news coming out of Colorado as well involving UCLA. We'll explain that and more after this. You're watching a very special live edition of Sports Talk with Ed. We'll be back after this. Back here on Sports Talk with Ed, just listen to some of the highlights from the Rams 43-20 blowout loss against the Cowboys last night or yesterday on Fox. And I do want to thank the NFL and Fox for their contribution to the highlights. Now we're gonna go over the recap of scoreboards from this past weekend's games. Starting with Thursday night football, Bills take out the Bucks 24-18. They go 5-3. Josh Allen gets a big win here. He threw for 324 and 2 touchdowns. Cook rushed for 14 rushes, 67 yards. The Rams, again, we mentioned earlier, blowout by the Cowboys 43-20. Prescott, 304, 4 touchdowns. Pollard, 12 carries, 53 yards. And Lamb, the receiver, 12 receptions, 158, 2 touchdowns. Also, the Vikings beat the Green Bay Packers 24-10. They are now 4-4, hold the currently last wild card spot in the NFC playoffs. Kirk Cousins threw for 274, 2 touchdowns. Lowe, 34 yards rushing, and KJ Osborne, 8 receptions, 99 yards. But unfortunately, after the game, MRI confirmed that Kirk Cousins threw his Achilles, and he'll miss the rest of the year. Sad time for the Vikings as they try to get into the playoffs. Tennessee with a good win, 28-23 over the Atlanta Falcons. Lewis, in his first career start, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns. Looks like the future is bright in Tennessee. Patriots lose to the Dolphins, 31-17. Tagovailoa, if I say it right, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Waddle, 7 catches for 121 with the touchdown. The Jets come back and beat the Giants 13-10. Zach Wilson, 240 yards, 1 touchdown. Saquon Barkley was the Giants' offense. He rushed for about 128 yards on 35 carries. Wilson for the Jets, 7 naps for 100 yards. Greg Sirlein hits the game-winning field goal. Jets, shockingly, at a 4-3, despite everything that's happened to them. Trevor Lawrence keeps the Jaguars undefeated on the road. They beat the Steelers 20-10. He threw for 292 and had a touchdown. Ingram, his tight end, caught 10 passes for 88 yards. Washington lost a close one to the Eagles 38-31, leading early, but Philly's offense was just too much. A.J. Brown, 130 yards on 2 touchdowns. The Texans had the lead, but Carolina scored with a minute left. They're off to Schneid. They get the first one of the year, 15-13 over the Panthers. Cleveland and Seattle, that was the game of the day, a back-and-forth battle. Seattle wins 24-20. They are now first place in the NFC West. Kansas City, the upset of the day. They went into Denver and they got beat 24-9, no touchdowns. Mahomes, 2 interceptions. And Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, 6 snaps for 58 yards. She was not in attendance at the game. The Bengals go up North California at Levi's, shock the 49ers 31-17. The Bengals above 500. The Niners 0-3 after that 5-0 start. What is going on there? And finally, Sunday Night Football, as we mentioned, the Chargers beat the Bears 30-13. Justin Herbert, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns. Austin Eckler was the leading receiver, 7 naps, 94, and a touchdown. The Chargers, 3-4. They host the New York Jets next. And tonight, Monday Night Football, which is minutes away, Jared Goff and the Lions take on Jimmy Garoppolo and the Las Vegas Raiders. And that's your score wrap here on Sports Talk. What a disaster. I might have to say it 3 or 4 times. What a disaster. What a disaster. What a disaster. What a disaster. 43-20. Ram fans believe the season's over. Everybody I've talked to in the last few days say, hey, what do you expect? The Rams are not going to do that well. They traded the whole farm to win that Super Bowl, and rebuilding year has started. Okay, let me explain something about that. There is nothing wrong with going all in, especially when you have the Super Bowl that's going to be played in your home stadium. Of course, it's everybody's dream to play in their home stadium, let alone the championship game. So, what's wrong with that? If you're a business owner and there's this big convention coming to your city and your company is going to be the main promoter, wouldn't you want to show how great your organization is? Don't you want to show how great everything is? And don't you want to show this beautiful stadium that you built? It took 5 years to build, didn't have fans the first year because of a pandemic, and then the year after that, you get to host the Super Bowl. Let alone that the Tampa Bay Bucks was the first team ever to win the Super Bowl as the city hosting the Super Bowl, and the Rams were able to do that the next year. Why won't you go all in for that? If you're doubting that, then tell me why. Why is it a big issue? Why is it a problem to go all in knowing where the Super Bowl is going to be at? I mean, I get tired of hearing about it all the time. Oh, they went all in. You know, they brought in these guys, they got the ring, but they weren't able to pay them. Okay, I get that. There's a price to pay when you make your investment. Why do you think we have a game called poker? Why are there games called solitaire or 21 or Russian roulette or the little thing they spin at the table? I'll never understand that. I want someone to tell me why is it a big issue? Why is it a problem to go all in? This team has been Super Bowl caliber for 5 years since this man arrived in Los Angeles, Sean McVay. He has experience of working with high-powered offense. He had that in Washington. He brings Jared Goff. Playoff bound the first year. Super Bowl bound the second year, but they didn't improve after that. And yes, it was a Super Bowl where they only scored 3 points, but that was because you're playing Bill Belichick. I mean, with that guy, you got to strategize more. I mean, you just can't. It's hard to predict what he's going to do, what he's going to do against you. Then 2020 comes, the COVID season. Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator, they had the best defense. They were ranked number one, but couldn't get out of the playoffs. Lost in the division round. Then the next year, they make the big moves. They bring in Matthew Stafford. They send Jared Goff packing away. Then after a 4-game losing streak, you bring in players like Odell Beckham Jr. because you lose Robert Woods. You bring in Von Miller because you felt the defense needed a tune-up. I mean, it didn't work well. They lost in the month of November, but then December came and they turned it on. You know, the picks, the trades was worth it because they won the division. They went into the first round of the playoffs and they dominated against Arizona, blew a 20-point lead in the divisional round against Tampa, get the game-sealing interception in San Francisco, lose Odell Beckham. Your running game sucks, but yet you're able to complete a pass to Cooper Kupp to win the Super Bowl. And then the offseason comes. Von Miller goes, Taylor Rapp goes, Cam Akers might get traded. Then Christian McCaffrey goes on the block. You can't get him. You lose Stafford, you lose Kupp, you lose Donald. You bring in Baker Mayfield. He wins you a game after being with the team for 2 days. That was a quarterback the Rams should have kept. Because of the system he knows, Baker Mayfield would have been a great starter. Now I'm looking at the stats here. And, it was fine at first. Yes, we know Dallas had to march down the field the first drive. Then the Rams had it. They got a field goal. I mean, Stafford played pretty much almost the whole third quarter. After that, he was pulled out. He had the injured thumb. He went 13 for 22 for 162. Has a touchdown, but that pick six really hurt the Rams. And then the running game, they rushed for 92 yards, which is not bad, but you wonder, this was the identity of the Los Angeles Rams. They were known for running the football. This organization didn't have a lot of good running backs. The first one that came to the Rams was Marshall Faulk. Then they had Steven Jackson. Then they had Zach Stacy. They didn't do well. Then Todd Gurley was their best running back, but they overused him, and it just cost them. You bring in Cam Akers, he tore his ACL. Then you bring in Darnell Henderson, then you send him away. He gets hurt. You're stuck with Sony Michel. Sony Michel was your running back. I think that if the Rams can run the football more, they can win the game because it takes it off Stafford's shoulders. Royce Freeman is a good running back. He's young. I think what the issue is here is how can the Rams be that explosive offense that we once saw for 4 years? How can they go back to that explosive offense? Because right now, all I see is a one-dimensional football team. Yes, they had the receivers, but still, you're putting a lot of pressure on a guy who's 35 years old, who's coming off a neck injury season, and now he has a thumb injury on his throwing hand. They brought back Darnell Henderson after shipping him off. He actually played well against Pittsburgh, but he only had 31 yards in the game. He only had 12 rushes. Freeman had 44. This team's not averaging well in running. Royce Freeman's longest yards of this game was 10. 10 yards was the longest rush of the day for him. 7 yards for Henderson. Matthew Stafford had 9. That was his only carry. It shows that you have an offensive problem with your running game. Your lineman's not that good. Rob Havenstein was out. He was hurt. He got hurt in Pittsburgh. So there goes your line. This was the key factor in the demise of the Rams. After Andrew Whitford left, there was no one else that could take control of that running game. You notice when Andrew Whitford was there, that line was very, very protective of Stafford and Goff. Here's a funny thing. Darnell Henderson Jr. was the leading receiver for the Rams. It's normally Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. Now, Nacua had some grabs. He had some yardage, but he didn't play well enough. The Cowboys had him in check. Cooper Cup only had 21 yards, so that's snapped his streak of 100 yards rush receiving. This receiving core is young, and let alone you trade away Van Jefferson. What in the hell was that all about? Not sure if it's for a money decision or what, but again, here are the effects of going all in. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with investing in one season. If you feel that you have it in to win it, you go for it. That's all I'm saying on that. Again, nothing wrong with going all in, but try to have a backup plan in case. This was the thing Sean McVay didn't want. He didn't want to have a rebuilding year. He says the rebuilding year sucks. Because when you rebuild, you don't win. And yes, it's surprising that they have 3 wins, and mostly everyone in the football world didn't think they were going to have 3 wins. Tutu Atwell, he's disappeared. He didn't do much. Higby is doing okay. He had 5 grabs, but he's not producing any numbers, and yet they gave this guy an extension. So again, the money going somewhere. But meanwhile, Dallas, I mean, Elliott's gone, and I think they have a good running back, but I don't know about that. But they still have Dak Prescott. He can still throw the ball. 304, 4 touchdowns. Boy, that's tough to see. And then Pollard had 53 yards rushing. Brandon Cooks, the ex-Ram, he had an okay game, sort of. Remember Brandon Cooks? He was Jared Goff's main man. Guess what? He had a touchdown reception. I'm pretty sure he had a little bit of hard feelings after getting traded after the Super Bowl year. So they're 2-2 on the road, the Rams. Next up, a trip to Lambeau Field. You think McDavid is happy about his team's performance? If you watch that game, he had a lot of frustration in his face. After the Philly game, he felt that he was excited because he said, we're going to figure this out. And it's going to be a challenge and it's going to be fun, that they can get better. Let's see how he felt after the game. Well, he seemed a little bit frustrated, a little bit humbled, as he said at the end of the press conference. He did give an update on Matthew Stafford. He said the thumb is bothering him, but no other information. One thing I like about Sean McVay is that he doesn't turn the blame. He accepts responsibility, and that's what makes him a great coach. He realizes that it was bad, and he praises his players for still continuing to play. This team is still playing hard for Sean McVay. You don't see nobody there give up, even though they were getting their butt kicked. They were still playing hard. Yes, you got outpowered, you got outplayed, you got outcoached, and you willing to accept that. I like to see how this team's going to go in the long run if they can get a couple of win streaks going on. If they can get the rushing game involved more, they will win. 92 yards rushing, Dallas rushed for 102. So the running game was kind of almost even there. And that's why I look to see what the Rams will do. But still a lot of questions this week. We will continue to monitor the Matthew Stafford injury. And again, tomorrow's a trade deadline, as I forgot to mention. The trade deadline is tomorrow at 4 Eastern. Don't expect the Rams to make any changes. They've already made a few. They gave away Cam Akers last month. They just traded Van Jefferson a few weeks ago. So it looks like they're just trying to free up money and getting ready for next year. But I believe this team can still play. They still make the playoffs. Now, last week they were in that seventh spot, but again, because of that loss, you still don't know. What about the defense? What do you think do you think the defense needs adjustments? Do you think Raheem Morris is the right coordinator? McVay has only had three coordinators since he's been with the Rams. Wade Phillips, Brandon Staley, now Raheem Morris. He's gone to the Super Bowl twice with two guys. He went to the Super Bowl with Wade Phillips, and he went to the Super Bowl with Raheem Morris, which he won. You wonder what how this team's going to go in the long run. But yeah, still a lot of football play to go. I think they can turn it around. Like I said, they got some easy games coming up. You should beat Green Bay. Cleveland will be tough one. Seattle, you got their number. So it's just a matter of time to see how things go. But again, that's why they play the game. So we're going to wrap up this segment of the Rams here on Sports Talk. We're gonna go and break away. Coming up in part two of our show, we're going to discuss the Chargers. A tough win for them, a very tough win for them last night against the Bears. They got their third win. Kansas City is struggling. Can they make a run for it? We just have to wait and see. But we will talk about the game they had. If Justin Fields will come back this season, we don't know yet. But that's why they play the game. As I said before, they play the Jets next. Chargers 3-4, 30-13 victory last night on Sunday Night Football. We're gonna go ahead and take a break. Come back for part two. We'll discuss the Chargers and the Bruins and Trojans as well here on Sports Talk.